I'm here in this beautiful part of the world. And as you can see, there is a picture. I didn't take that one. I wish I had. And in this setting, it's difficult to think about challenge, problems, conflict. Because usually we live in our own little environments, our own bubbles. And sometimes, like this one, it's just perfect. But there are so many challenges out there that are pushing us to take a peek and exit our bubbles and see far away and empathize with fellow humans. I truly believe that we are living in an evolution, in a revolution. And the problem with living through a revolution is that we don't have the ability to think back. Our only option or opportunity is try to identify the challenges before the future decide for us. So that's why I called this session The Human Future and the Fifth Sun. As Todd mentioned, my name is Ixchel Reese, and he also mentioned that I'm coming from Mexico. So I decided to take one of our most interesting myths about the world creation and destruction, the five suns. It is all around the Nahuatl culture. And there are several sources because we lost a lot of information and when the conquest began. So all the things that I'm going to talk about right now are based on the Vaticanus Codex. And here they talked about how the Nahuatls envisioned the creation of the world and the different eras. So the Nahuatls believed that we were living in the fifth sun. And before that, 4 times the whole humanity and the world was destructed by cataclysmic events. And each one of these eras was associated with a god and a deity. For example, the first one was water, and it was through Tlaloc, the god of the rain and water. Then it came the era of the wind. And again, it was through conflict between different gods that either we create or destroy the world. The third one was the fire. And in this one, it was Quetzalcoatl, the one that came in and shaked the world. Finally, the previous to this one, the earth. In each one of these cataclysmic events, usually a couple survived that helped to rebuild the next world and the next generation. In some of these eras, there was more than one couple. And finally, the fifth sun. This is the sun of movement. And I really agree with the Nahuatls. I think this is the era where a lot of things are happening. And not only a lot of things are happening, the speed of how they are happening, it's mind-blowing. For example, the population. Around 1987, it only took us 37 years to double the world population. We have the next milestone in 2024 when we are going to reach 4 billion in just 49 years. Not only technology has evolved super fast, but also not only the population has evolved super fast, but also the technology. For example, I decided to take this one in terms of the supercomputer power for flops. And according to the two 500 supercomputer databases. In 2019, this year, the number one computer, it is calculating 1.48 petaflops, and the sum of the top 500 is 1.6 exaflops. But it's not only the computer power, our ability to compute so fast. We are also evolving our algorithms, and really fast. For example, in 2017, we have in the news AlphaZero. Who heard about AlphaZero? And you probably know also that it only took AlphaZero to beat AlphaGo in 1.5 years. AlphaZero didn't have previous knowledge of different plays. He only received the instructions of the game. And by using the first 5,000 first generation TPUs, it was able to generate the different possibilities of the plays through reinforced learning. And AlphaZero has not only mastered Go, it has also been able to do advances in, well, master chess and shogi, and creates its own strategies. So we have a huge population. Our technology is going super fast, and we are evolving. We are able to do so many things. And I'm not even talking about quantum computers just yet. These are the traditional ones. So with this technology, we're also able to communicate, and that's a great thing. For example, I found these statistics in the digital trends of 2019. And of all the population, the unique mobile users is 5 billion. Internet users, 4 billion. Active social media users, 3. So we are really well connected. So the ability to transmit a message or to consume information is in a moment that we never seen before. Yuval Noah Harari, in his latest book, he talks about the 3 challenges that humankind is going to face or is facing. He says that nuclear war, climate change, and technological disruption, artificial intelligence, machine learning. I will add big data. And that's why I start with big data. The first thing that raises eyebrows is, what is big data? How big is big? There are people that will say that teras, exas. Whenever I hear of big data, I think about the CERN. I think they know about big data. But it's not longer about classifying correctly if we are talking about big data or not. It's about the problems that arise or the problems that we have. And one of the main problems is bias. There are several biases that can appear in the data. For example, the human reporting bias. Ortega Gasset, a professor in the University of Spain, in one of his courses about, lectures about metaphysics, after sitting down and asking their students to describe their surroundings, after several hours, they reach a level of description very deep. But all of them forgot to mention that they were sitting down in a chair. None of them could describe that important fact because they thought that it was a given. So this happens a lot in human nature. We have a stored representation. We have default values imprinted in our minds, so we don't mention. So when we report activities done by humans, some of the most common activities are not reported. Selection bias. This is very common, sadly. We are not very good at recognizing differences. So we tend to like, fall in love, work with people that look like us. So sometimes we're blinded to people that do not look like us. And this blindness impacts how we also report the world. Not only that, coming to conclusions towards this super selected data, it's also a problem. Margaret Mitchell has a really interesting graph about all the biases that you can have in data, and not only during or inside the data in itself, during collection and annotation. So I really, if you are interested in all the problems that we have with data and the biases and how we are using it to build models or train models, and the implications in the applications that we then use them, this is a great source. So she proposed through the different other studies and different other people that the human data perpetuates human biases. And then obviously machine learning learns from human data, and the result is a bias in the network effect. It's a network effect in bias. And then we have unintentional consequences and outcomes because we don't have insight on the data that we are using for training and model and the feedback loops. And then we also have failures in subgroups. But don't be so discouraged. They are actually coming into this community with ideas on how to overcome these problems. They are talking about how to introduce fairness card, to know what are the limitations, what was the intention of the model, self-reporting of the data, generating lineages for the data, and trying to divide it by subgroups to understand what is the failure in each of the subgroups. So it's hope. And there is hope, and I think we are moving towards the right direction. But this is a fact. We are already using these models, this data. For example, Faceception. This is an Israeli startup that claims that is able to analyze character traits. And the problem is, well, this idea of analyzing our features and trying to come up with either our way of thinking is not very new. Actually, I think you can recall the most famous ones probably was during the Greeks and the Roman Empire, but we can go back even more than 3,000 years where this was a thing. And still, we were very bad at that. We're also using it, and there's a commercial software that you can use for analyzing futures recruits. So you can have a video interview, and then the company tells you that it's going to analyze either to capture the mood and assess the personality traits, and also analyze the transcript text of it to see if you are a good fit for the companies. Before I move on, one of the things that Margaret Mitchell tells us is that sometimes we are creating a model, for example, We have a model that is able to recognize when people are smiling. But that doesn't mean that when you are smiling means that you are happy. So sometimes we use these models that know how to represent that we are smiling and infer incorrectly that the people that are smiling is happy. So this is the problem when we don't disclose what was the objective or what was the purpose of the training of this particular model. So that's why her group and the community, the artificial intelligence community in language, is going and trying to introduce these ideas of fairness and transparency into the classification of the different models and data. So, I talked about big data, I talked about the possible problems that we have with it, but there is also another problem that we have faced in the last few months, the acquisition. Who doesn't remember Cambridge Analytica and how it made the news? Is anybody here that doesn't know about Cambridge Analytica? Okay, perfect. You are my kind of people. But all companies, not only Facebook, have been indulging in practices that raise eyebrows around the world. There was a month that I was surprised because Microsoft, Twitter, Facebook, Apple were saying, oops. They changed their policies to reflect that. Microsoft actually said, yes, we know, no, we are not going to change. You can review your data policy now again. And if I were them, if I had this market share, if I had access to that amount of data, I would also be tempted. If you want to hear more about these big four and why it may be a good idea to break them up, Professor Scott Galloway has a really interesting talk and book about the hidden DNA of Amazon. He talks about why and what are the perils and why should we break them. He's always introduced as a socialist, but actually he says that the reason, I will spoil you that talk, but it's totally worth it. One of the reasons why we should break them is because we have such accumulation of wealth that we don't need so little billionaires, we need more multimillionaires. So that's a good argument. The market capitalization, how big are these big companies? So this is September 13, 2019, and this is by Professor Galloway, and this is how big they are. Microsoft, 1 trillion, Amazon, 911. But how big is big again? Well, if you sum the market capitalization of these four companies, there are only 5 other nations that have a greater GDP combined to those. So they rule the world, and there's nobody above them. They have been invited to different governments to answer questions, and they have declined. Jeff Hamburg, well, probably pronouncing about his last name, he was working for Facebook, and he was quoted saying, "The best minds of my generation are thinking about how to make people click ads." Now he's working for a different company that actually analyzes data in a better way. This also surprised me a lot. In 2010, Facebook did an experiment with 61 million people. They actually subdivided into 3 different groups. They presented like, today is election day to one group. To a second group, they put, today is election day, and these of your friends had already voted. And to the third group, they didn't put anything. So the researchers think that by nudging in this very simple way, they were able to introduce 340,000 votes. Maybe it was a fluke. They actually did it again with even better results. For a person that usually is against regulations, Elon Musk is quoted saying, "We should regulate, we have to be proactive, because if we wait until there is a need, then probably it's too late." We did a bet. On Google's side, it was not through Google's. It actually was a conflict between the different participants of the panel. Some of them decided that it was not the right forum, and other words were marred by bad publicity. But still, we are not doing a great job. Actually, I try and really try to make this talk optimistic, to uplift you. And I think I failed, or at least up to this point, I really failed. Because at this point, you're saying, "Oh my goodness, Ixchel," and you didn't even touch the other 2 challenges. By the way, today is the climate change strike, global day. Around the world, thousands of people are striking because of global or climate change. And I'm only talking about technology, and I already feel like this. And I wanted to use one of Greta's phrases. I didn't want to stop there and give you hope only. I want you and me to start acting, and then hope will come. So what can we do to fix the world? What are the action items that we're going to take from this talk? Sadly, your guess is my best guess. But I have an idea. Let's burst our bubbles. Let's open our eyes and try to be more empathetic with the human race as a whole. Let's try to be here, present, and now. And start by engaging in conversation. Instead of saying, "I don't want anything to do with this discussion because the topic is too difficult, because it's not polite." I want me and you to sit down and say, "This is a hard topic. Probably I will have a very strong opinion about it, but I will still respect you because we are in a dialogue. Because this is a global challenge that no country, no company is able to solve by itself. But how are we going to sit down to the table and discuss and have an adult, civil, respectful conversation if we don't know what we're talking about? So I'm putting an onus on you. And if you don't know about these topics, maybe it's time to start reading about them. Maybe it's time to catch up, even if it's not in a direct line of our work. I don't work in machine learning just yet. But I've been tracking and I've been listening to the communities. What are they saying? What are their concerns? In the making and as a user. Because, for example, I really, really know that I've been subject to these algorithms. Every single time I open my Gmail account, there is going to be an ad on the side suggesting me something. The price of the flights I took, they were probably influenced by this. My Amazon shopping cart has a specific articles just tailored for me. We are in a unique position because we are software developers. We understand a little bit better how machines, how algorithms, how technology is behaving. Where are we going towards that? And I think it's also our responsibility to bring this conversation to the bigger audience. For example, every single time I received a call from my mom telling me, I got this email asking me to send all this information, I will have to sit down and tell Mom, that's the worst idea ever. You don't ever provide information to anybody that you don't know through internet. And then I went on and started discussing some of the topics about security, data protection. And I think it's really important. Now my mom is the most advanced tech key in her meetings, in her friends' meetings. And as I said, we really, really need to create a united front. Because this is a challenge that only us can tackle. And I wanted to show you this. I hope I can show you this. As I said, I'm going to pass it through this. No? Wait a second. Yeah. We have a problem, and it's not only in technology. We can also help in case of climate change. I finished way too early, and I apologize for that. I went too fast. But if you have questions, and I know this is not the style in a keynote, and if I can answer some, I'd be more than welcome. Questions? Yes.
So I've also had the experience of working with someone else who's a non-technical person on front. What should I do about this email? Or how do I know this is the real banking website? And what's the domain name? What's the path? What's HTTPS? That's all being one-on-one. So that's all being probably like your experience. Any ideas on what the next step of that is? Is it continue to do that one-on-one? Is there something between one-on-one and being a professor in an educational institution or giving talks?
I redirect my mom. Well, the question was, is there anything that we can do between going one-on-one, helping, being like the help desk of your family and friends, and help them like acquire this knowledge by themselves. And for example, in my personal case of my mom, I have redirected her to online courses, Khan Academy or things like that are very short and they were up to the point and to a certain level. So that's what I have been doing. Any other question? It was really very depressing. I really try not to be depressive. But I think, and I didn't even add the whole economical side of it. Because if I went into really deep into, for example, the tax topic about the Big Four, the implications in our services and healthcare, we will be crying by this moment. But there is hope. I really think that there is hope because, as I said, I have the reference to all of it. Actually, I will publish my slides with all the references and the studies and the talks and the sessions and the books that I consult through the years, months for this.
I have a question. Can you share your thoughts or deeper thoughts about the idea of using facial recognition to tie them to personal characteristics in an age when we know that that different cultures express so many things facially differently, and just, you know, is this something that we really need to seriously look at and say, is this a new age of some of the things we've seen in the 1910s about how different characteristics of different people, you know, basically put them into
Different categories.
different categories of, you know, of better or best, or things that led to.
Perfect. I do have an answer for that. For example, there is, I was surprised by a particular application in Japan. A particular application in Japan for clerks of a certain service activities, they will have this screen. Well, each clerk has to go there and practice smiling. And then it will rate the quality of their smile. And it's interesting, it was interesting for two things, the work aspect of it, and the second, how do they rate? Because it is known, and it's a known fact, that the Asian cultures interpret emotion in a different way. We usually pay attention to certain facial characteristics like mouth. They pay attention to eyes. So sometimes there is this miscommunication between cultures because we are paying attention to different things. So yes, you're right. So how are we going to promote a specific model that is said to be interpreting the expression or the mood or the personality traits through a video, and if we don't know how was trained and how many sub-different groups were actually fed into it, and the bias, yeah. So right now, it's very worrisome.
Are we not on a path to where we're coming up with a new way of classifying people into different categories, which hierarchical?
Oh, yes, actually. There is another particular tool that I was used by to, quote, predict the recurrences of criminal activities into the population that was already incarcerated. So through this particular, and I can send you the particular program. Through this program, they realized that, for example, black people score higher. And they actually followed two specific candidates that were introduced into this particular software, and they realized that the low score person that happened to be male, white, actually was in jail in less than 18 months, while the black participant managed to stay out of jail for a longer period of time. Actually, he didn't go back to jail. So yes, we're already doing it and failing miserably. Okay. Yes?
So I know it's a point of contention, but in like scientific communities, there's a peer review process for journals that get posted to reputable things. Do you think that that's a potential solution for biases in data sets where maybe we need to have bodies reviewing how the data sets are put together before they're used in commercial products?
Exactly, that's what Margaret Mitchell is trying to push. So we need to provide lineage of data. Where, how, what. Did people give their permission? What was the extent of the permission? What was the usage of the permission? What happens with the second generation with data that was created, aggregated data? The other thing is having a card for each model. What was the intention? What is the limitation? What was the groups, the subgroup, the failure? So if we increase the transparency, if we increase the description, people can make informed decisions, go figure, and try to overcome the limitation of each of the failures of the subgroups. So yes, what they are proposing is we have to be more rigorous into providing information and into filling out these cards to introduce fairness into the models and fairness into the data. Any other question? Yes?
Has there been any research around cosmic of or the balance between the individuality, which is based on data privacy, versus the greater good of the society, which would be towards AI, which needs data from individuals? Basically, I want to have a greater society.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to give up my individuality. And AI kind of needs data from as many individuals as possible. So how do we balance that?
Yuval Harari actually has a really nice section about this. And he's a proposal of artificial intelligence. And actually, he says, more or less, we cannot avoid it so far. I mean, it's happening, we are reacting too slow, there is no governing bodies. Even when we try to do it, we fail miserably. But he's saying, don't worry. There is a point where we are going to be, where we have already all the data that we require. So consider yourself like the guinea pigs, and eventually the models will be there. So his answer, and I don't know if I truly share it, but at least it's an answer that I have found, is at some point the uniqueness of our data, it won't matter. The uniqueness of your data and my data matters right now. We are part of the system. How do you feel, or how do I feel knowing that, for example, Google knows more than...
Wouldn't that thought contradict what we believe makes a society? Everyone's data matters. Everyone's vote at the ballot matters.
Okay. This is another, yeah. Elon Musk and Yuval Harari actually say this. When they were asking Elon Musk about what will be the, the type of government in Mars, he actually jokingly says, "Emperor, do you think it's too much?" No, but after the joke, he actually goes to explain and say direct democracy. Because right now with technology, is the only way we can actually hear every single individual. So these are two different things. One is how do we communicate, the other one is how we are being used to generate other side. Like, but then what was your question then? Yes, we will count. Yes, now we have the capacity to make, to raise our hand. And if the systems are there to listen to us, to take into consideration our opinion, maybe it's a good thing. But I see them as two different topics.
Yeah, kind of. It's just that I do fear a future where systems will be put in place based on previous data,
Mm-hmm.
and society will continue to evolve. And we already see that with, for example, the legal systems. Legal systems, the law is most often a reflection of the culture. And the legal system, the laws, they are very slow at evolving with the culture. Now, AI can be a lot faster than that, right? The models in AI can be a lot faster than the law in reflecting what the culture is now feeling, thinking, and behaving. I guess the question is, what would be needed to bring the AI models back to the state of the culture, and then a lot more data. So I think that we will never get to a point where, oh, we don't need more data. We will always be needing data because the culture, the way people think, will always be evolving.
Yes.
The AI models, they will always be needing to catch up with them.
Yes, I think we will have a feedback loop that we need to feed with new data to accommodate the evolution that we are triggering by changing behavior towards the previous models that we have. Yes.
Yeah, so that's why I think every individual's data is important in AI models to reflect and activate
It's,
representation of the culture.
yes, I mean, yes, I agree with you. We're talking about here about what are we recording, how are we recording, what is the intention of the recording, create, denormalize good the data, and create these pools of information that have high quality and they are really gathered for a purpose. Yes, yes, I agree with you. And there has to be rules about what, how, when, and how we can use it. Yes.
Very, very hard.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, I think, I don't know the time. Okay. I promise we will finish by 9:50. So thank you very much for listening.